It's another day with your fertility specialist, and we're so happy to bring you today's topic. Still on sickle cell disease, still on genotype mismatch, still on specifically today preventing sickle cell disease. There's just a lot that we've been getting as feedback from you, our dear viewers, and we must say a very big thank you on behalf of Alps Hospitals for your sincere feedback. Sincere feedback, it really shows that you're following, and we do not take that for granted. Thanks, and thanks so much. I'm your host, Ruth Ogogo, and I'm very happy to be with you this afternoon. On behalf of Alps Hospital, we love to say a very big thank you to our dear viewers. Thank you for liking our post. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for always staying tuned. Right now, call someone up, share this link with someone so they get the insight you're just about to get. Today, we have our guest from yesterday, Dr. Kenneth Eguda. It's always a pleasure to have you with us.
I like it.
And yeah, so
Thank you.
it's not another Wednesday, so it's Thursday today. We say welcome on this show today. So as we get started, drop your thoughts, drop your comments, your opinion in the comment section. We'll definitely attend to them appropriately. Okay, so we're talking about preventing sickle cell disease. So knowing that this is a genetic condition, this is hereditary. Is there a way of preventing it actually? I mean, getting to sickle cell disease, knowing that it's genetic, this is more like passed from offspring and from parents or ancestors to offspring. Is there a way of preventing it really?
Yeah, thank you, Ruth. And it's really nice talking about this because it's a very big, it's an issue of big concern, you know.
Yeah.
And if you ask me for this week, it's been on our burner, the
Hmm.
front burner.
Hmm.
And then we really need to talk about preventing it. And beyond
Yes.
preventing it, how to eliminate these abnormalities.
Yeah.
If we
Mm.
reduce the number of people having to live with sickle cell by preventing transmission of these genetic abnormalities,
Yeah.
I think we'll be doing a lot to working towards eliminating it. Just like
Yeah.
polio has been kicked out of a
Yes.
lot of countries right now. So I think
Yes.
sickle cell can be prevented.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the ways that we could actually prevent this? Because yes, today we're talking about preventing sickle cell. For someone watching for the first time, we've really talked elaborately about sickle cell and genotype mismatch. So you could always revert back to our videos from last week up till yesterday, and you get so much insight about sickle cell and genotype mismatch. But today, right now, we're going to dwell more on how to prevent this sickle cell disease. So what are some of the ways that we could actually prevent this condition?
Yeah, for me, the first way to prevent this condition, it's first of all by having a good laboratory testing of your
Okay.
genotype as
Mm,
a child under the care of some guidance,
yeah.
and as an adult, who is solely responsible for himself.
Yeah.
You know, if we have good laboratory testing, at
Mm,
least people know their genotype before
yeah.
making any suspicious move in life.
Mm,
They know their genotype, and when you know your genotype, and you know the right genotype, then you should
yes.
make very purposeful moves, as in move in the right direction.
Yeah.
Why I say this is that many times at my clinic consulting, uh, usually when I see couples both having mismatched genotype, I'm
Yeah.
talking about AS getting married to an AS
Yes.
who
Yes.
have already been married for a long time,
Mm,
or those intending to get married
married.
who have already crossed, quote and unquote, the point of no going back.
Mm,
I always ask them, how did we get to this point?
yeah.
And a good number of them will tell me that they never knew they were AS
Yes. Oh no.
couples.
Oh no.
They only discovered when they did some laboratory investigations.
Wow.
The ones they did before marriage shows that they were compatible. Maybe
Oh
one
no.
person is
Yeah.
AS and the
Okay.
other is AA. So they
Wow.
felt or thought they were compatible. But because we are a reproductive center,
Yes.
and we're careful about transfer of some genetic abnormalities,
Yeah.
we do detailed laboratory investigation and we
Mm.
find out that this is not matching,
Yeah.
and then it comes as a surprise
Them.
to this
Hmm.
couple.
Hmm.
And sometimes, it's a violent surprise.
Yeah, I
A
can
lot of
imagine.
arguments go down, a lot of disagreement goes down,
Yeah.
and we
No.
decide to repeat the genotype again,
Mm.
maybe somewhere else, one or two more times, and then
Yeah.
it comes out mismatched couples, AS and
Yes.
AS.
Oh no.
And we just ask, how was it done previously, anyways?
Oh.
And so they come with wrong or misdiagnosed genotype. So I
Yeah.
think one first way to preventing sickle cell disease
Hmm.
is by having the right laboratory test.
Hmm.
And so having this bundle of experience, I think
Yes.
I would say, don't be satisfied when your genotype is just AA from one laboratory.
Hmm.
I think you should do in one or two more laboratories and
Yeah.
get an agreeing outcome,
Yeah.
or use one or two different modalities
Hmm.
and get an agreed outcome before you would conclude that this is your genotype. And of
Yeah.
course, it's good to know what your parents' genotypes are,
Ah.
so that
Hmm.
even if it's one um, laboratory investigations you've done, you'll be able to tie it up
Relate
to
it
your parents'
exactly.
genotype in case that
Hmm.
is what you are expecting.
Yeah.
If your parents are both AA, for instance,
Hmm.
and then you got AA, I think it's fair enough to just hold one laboratory
Hmm.
investigations,
Hmm.
you know. But if your parents are AA, both AA, and you get an AS, for instance, you know that this is not right. You have
Yeah.
to check it over and
All
over
over
again. So
again.
most couples are misdiagnosed,
Hmm.
misdiagnosed from the laboratories. So, and I
Yes.
think in this regard, laboratories should have a standard operating procedures,
Yeah.
and the modalities of having these checked
Hmm.
and reported,
Yeah.
and all of that. It
So they
is
don't
a
mislead
laboratory
people.
investigation that should be done by the most experienced, or reported by two persons in the same laboratory at the least. So it
Hmm.
is not just an
The
error
one
coming
person.
from some unexperienced reportage. So
Yes.
yes, having the right laboratory test is the first way,
Hmm.
because when you know the first thing,
Yeah.
you will likely going to make the right move by avoiding
Yes.
an abnormal or mismatching genotype.
Genotype.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so laboratories should do a lot. So we should have improved laboratory wares, improved
Yes.
testing kits,
That's
and
right.
experienced people reading
Hmm.
this, more especially when it is done by the electrophoretic method.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
you should have it done. And when you have a situation, when you have when you're doing electrophoresis, for instance,
Yeah.
sometimes it depends on the flow of the band on
Okay.
the strip, you know
Yes. Hmm.
and if the flow is not proper, or it's not as smooth as expected, or as fast as expected,
Yeah.
maybe you have to give it some time, or
Hmm.
call some more experienced person to read it, or
Hmm.
repeat the test all over again. And in this
Yeah.
case, you may want to send to one or two more laboratories to
Hmm.
have a standard result before this result is broken to this individual. So laboratory testing is very important, and it should be done in a standard condition and
Yeah.
reported properly.
Hmm. So for someone watching, double check your genotype, and it's possible it's even your parents that are even having the wrong genotype.
Oh
Maybe they
yeah.
could be thinking they
Mm-hmm.
are AA, both AA, and then maybe it's one that
Mm-hmm.
is AA and one is AS, and maybe you're going to do and you're like, my both parents are AA. It's possible that an error was even made with one of
There
them.
was a situation in the office. I'm glad
Yeah.
you said this.
Hmm.
A lady came in for IVF, and of
Yeah.
course, the genotype is one of the first things that we do, And
Yes.
then we checked the genotype, and the genotype was AS, for instance.
Yeah.
Genotype was AS,
Hmm.
but then she never knew she was AS, or
Yes.
she's AS, and her husband or partner doesn't know she is AS. So they
AS.
all assume she
She's AA.
was AA.
Wow.
And then right there, she made a call to her sister
Hmm.
and said, "This is what you're finding out in the hospital. What is your genotype?" Then the sister said she was AS.
Okay. Wow.
And then they made a call right there to their parents, and
Yeah.
the parent confirmed what their genotypes were. And
Mm.
so it means that there was some chances that she could be AS. So the
Yeah.
fight in the consulting room, you know mellowed down. And
Yes,
then we
yes.
repeated the laboratory investigation again, and it
Mm,
was AS. And the sister now told her that, yeah, that's what my result is. So it was reassuring to her that this was it. And
mm.
then the story changed a bit. But in
Yeah.
her case, she was AS, her husband was
EE.
AA. So there was no
Lucky her.
problem. They could get pregnant
Yeah.
anyhow, So, but then laboratory errors. So the
Errors.
parents, they need to know what the parents' laboratory investigations are. The
Yes.
parents may be wrong,
Yeah.
or they may use the parents' laboratory result to confirm what they expect to have of theirs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay, so this is just one out of the ways to prevent
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
sickle
yeah,
cell
yeah.
disease. So, what are other ways that we could actually prevent? Now, you said you've mentioned that they should ensure they check and double check their
Yeah, they should check
genotype.
because most of
Mm,
them are laboratory errors.
yeah.
And then you make marriages, and then you have a lot of sickle cell babies in the
Mm,
society.
mm.
So we need to get them right.
So now you've known your genotype. The next point. Now I know that maybe some after they've known their genotype, they might be thinking marriage. So what's the next way to prevent the sickle cell mishap?
Yeah, you
Because it's
see,
not just enough to know
mhm.
your genotype.
When you want to marry, you apply the knowledge of genotype
Yes.
in selecting
Yeah.
your spouse.
Mm.
Otherwise, you may be having abnormal babies. I mean, babies with
Yeah.
abnormal genotypes,
So like you
especially the
mentioned
SS
yesterday.
genotype. So it should guide you in finally deciding who to have kids with. Let's not talk
Mm.
about marriage now. Let's
Yeah,
decide
that's
who you want to have kids with, and
yes.
how then you go about having these kids. You may decide to have kids with anyone, but then I think the health of the offsprings should be very important. So when you know your genotype, you should use the knowledge in deciding who you want to get you want to have kids with,
With
and so or you want to get married, who you want to get married to.
Okay, so maybe speaking of marrying right now, speaking of marrying the right person, or speaking of having kids with the
With the
right
right
person,
person.
what genotypes are really compatible that would actually prevent people from coming down with this sickle cell disease offspring?
Okay, so from our knowledge of biology back then in the primary school or
Mm,
early secondary school,
yeah.
you know, an AA can marry anyone.
Mm,
You could marry an SS, as a matter of fact. Just
mm,
that the problem with the SS is with conception and all the health crises that she will have. But
yes. Mm,
the kids are likely going to be saved if kids come from that relationship. Okay,
yes.
so an AA can marry anyone. You can marry
Okay.
an SS, you can
Mm,
marry an SC,
okay.
you can marry an AC,
Okay.
and all of
Wow.
that. We're looking at it with respect to the offsprings now.
Yes.
The
Yes.
kids will be normal with
Mm,
respect to genotype. The kids could have
yes.
other abnormalities.
That's right.
The Down syndrome, the
No.
trisomy Edward syndrome, the Klinefelter syndrome, and all of that. The kids could have any of that. But with respect to genotype,
Genotype.
that
Yeah.
was good enough. That's
Mm,
good enough.
mm.
And then the problem in the marriage will be having a mismatch. AS and an AS
Mm,
should marry with caution.
mm,
You know, an AS and an SS
hmm.
is just not a good idea at all.
That's
It's just
a
not a
time
good
bomb
a good idea at all
waiting to
because a lot
explode.
of catastrophe can come out
Yes.
from that marital relationship because there's very high chance that if they're having conception, the kids may just become
All sickle cell
multiple
babies.
sickle cells.
Yes.
But then they could have safe babies.
Mm.
They could have safe babies if an AS marry an SS, for instance.
Yeah.
The only way they could guarantee having safe babies here is doing an advanced IVF with PGD. And then
Yes.
even in the PGD, the best you can get
Hmm.
will be an
AS.
AS baby,
Baby.
and then because 75% of the time, if you have spontaneous pregnancy,
Yeah. Both of them
it's
are carriers.
carriers, and they're all going to be the likelihood of having abnormal babies is very
Babies.
high. So that's one of the mismatches. So an AA can marry anyone.
Mm.
An AS and SS, I mean an AA, I mean AS
And
and an
AA.
AS
Okay.
can get married, but then if they want to have kids, it's going to be safe with pre-implantation genetic
Genetic
diagnosis,
diagnosis.
which is very expensive. So that's what we call the costly love. And
Mm.
AA can marry an AS,
Mm.
no problem.
That's all.
They can just have. kids anyhow.
Yeah.
Spontaneous conception if it happens, or assisted conception if spontaneous conception doesn't happen.
So on the
So
lighter note, I'm even thinking AA should not be greedy. Maybe they should not be marrying themselves. They should just share with people that are AS. So that why should AA and AA be getting married when we have a lot of AS? That's just
yeah,
on a lighter
oh
note
yeah.
anyway.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. So these are some of the ways that you've mentioned that we could prevent sickle cell disease. For someone living with this condition, that's with sickle cell disease, and they want to have a baby, what are the chances or options available that they won't put a baby's life at risk? Now, for someone that is already SS, okay, and they are hoping that they would have a offspring that would be healthy baby, not a sickle cell diseased baby. What are the options that they have to embrace?
So I didn't get your question. Can you take it
Okay,
again?
I said for someone living with this condition, that's sickle cell disease,
Yeah.
and they want to have a baby, what are the chances that they could have healthy babies that would not be sickle cell diseased as well? Are there things that are there? Is there a modality that they could actually maybe imbibe that would actually help in preventing them from coming down with babies that are sickle cell diseased?
Yes. So I'm assuming I understand you properly now.
Mm,
So one, it's let's talk the standard modalities.
yeah.
One is the IVF, the advanced IVF.
Mm,
Where they do IVF with pre-implantation genetic testing and diagnosis. Now, in this situation, you get the eggs from the female
mm,
and the sperm from the male. You
yeah.
fertilize them randomly. Then you take a biopsy, of the embryo
Mm,
and subject it to a DNA testing,
mm.
pre-implantation genetic testing, and
Okay.
then you know what genotypes the embryos are carrying.
R. Mm.
So you only select the embryos that are safe, either AA or AS, and transfer into the woman. That is a
Mm.
standard thing that should be done, and that's why to say if they're making such decision to have kids or marrying, they should be comfortable enough to afford this kind of treatment. So this is a standard thing. When pregnancy occurs in this situation, the baby
Yes.
can never be SS because you know
Mm.
what the baby is before putting the baby
Baby into
inside
the
the
woman.
uterus.
Mm.
So that's one. So for those who can afford this, there is an option of doing an IVF still with gamete donation.
Okay.
You
Okay.
know, in this case, one of the partners should opt for a donated gamete.
Mm.
Yeah, donated gametes. So it could be the male that is opting for the donated gametes,
Mm.
or the female opting for a
Donated
donated
garment.
oocytes,
Mm.
or donated eggs from an AA individual. So
Yeah.
when this is done with the conventional IVF, which is a lot cheaper or less
Yes.
expensive, the
Yes.
baby cannot be uh,
SS.
SS.
Yeah.
The baby is very likely going to be safe so long as pregnancy happens.
Mm.
So these are the ways to go about getting pregnant for safety. We have a lot of couples coming to the clinic to do this. For instance,
Mm.
yes, a good number of them opt for the donor eggs, but those who really want
Well,
genetic connections with their
yes.
babies,
Mm.
would struggle to do the pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. And so now I always ask them, as a couple or as a parent, when you want to have babies, what is really your what is what really do you want about the baby? Is it
Mm.
the ability to be a parent, or the capacity to be a parent that you want to see in yourself, or the genetic connection with these individuals, with these babies?
Mm.
A good number of them want the genetic connections with the babies, while some are at the age where they don't have that luxury. It's just the
Yes.
ability to be parenting. I'm saying
Mm.
this to say that a lot of gamete donation happens in assisted reproduction technology, not just necessarily because of genotype, some
Yes.
because of aging. You have a
Mm.
lot of ladies without eggs and a lot of men without sperms,
Mm.
or some other ladies with an abnormal eggs find it very difficult to get pregnant. So
Mm.
gamete donation is a standard practice across the globe. It's done everywhere, including here. So people shouldn't be too scared
Mm.
of accepting egg donation.
Yeah.
In this case, you have ability to be a parent, and also you are the one who takes in the pregnancy, who
Mm.
delivers the baby, and who
Yes.
brings the baby into the world.
Mm.
So yeah, so these are the options. But then we cannot talk about options without talking about CRISPR, for instance.
Yeah.
With CRISPR, you could do a lot.
Hmm.
You could do a lot with CRISPR. You could use it to prevent sickle cell disease.
Hmm.
You could use it to even inject into an individual with sickle cell, and
Okay.
it stops him from manifesting sickle cell disease and
Wow.
stops him from transferring or transmitting the genes, the
Wow.
sickle cell hemoglobin gene to some other
Yes.
person.
Wow.
You could use it in the IVF to
Okay.
prevent sickle cell disease.
Okay.
You know,
Wow.
in a lot of ways. I don't just want to say things that sound crazy on this platform,
Mm.
but may only be reasonable in a scientific gathering.
Yes.
Yeah, with sickle cell, yeah, you could do a lot. Even those with outright sickle cell abnormalities could
Yes.
get corrected with this
Wow.
with CRISPR,
Wow.
just the way they get cured when they take CRISPR therapy when they are
Yes.
grown. So it could
Yes.
be applied in any of those treatments and use it to prevent and use it as well for treatment. So
Wow.
there's a lot that can be done about preventing sickle cell, and I think that should be the goal of any reasonable government who cares about the health of its citizenry.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So a lot is being said about preventing sickle cell. So for someone that is a sickle cell diseased patient, you could have healthy babies, like he had mentioned, through PGD, or yeah, if your partner is AA, like he also mentioned, you also have the chances of having babies that are not sickle cell. Your babies can't even be sickle cell if you marry a partner that is AA, and he also talked about the gamete donation. So we've noticed, and you also mentioned yesterday, a lot of stigmatization with these sickle cell patients. So what was your counsel to the public? Because I know we have viewers that are watching, and the little viewers watching is just a fraction of the public. But I believe if they get this information, they can also infiltrate their environment wherever they are. Their counsel to them with regards how they relate with these sickle cell patients, and with the whole stigmatization around and all. What's your counsel to them with regards how to relate with these people?
I think stigmatization, not just of sickle cell, but of
Yeah.
any disease condition, is bad. A disease condition is a disease condition.
Mm.
People don't orchestrate it. A good number of these things happen out of accidents,
Yes.
but then the accident could be born out of ignorance, you
Yeah.
know, and or just a sheer accident.
Mm.
So I think stigmatization should be put behind us now. We should be able to accept everybody in the sphere of life that we find, because
Yeah.
they may just be having sickle cell, but some other persons may be having some other diseases. So I
Yeah.
think we should show understanding. We should help them when we see that they are in crisis. We should
Mm.
prioritize their health care when they are needing emergency. And
Yeah.
in counseling, for instance, when they want to tag along, maybe getting married or having kids,
Mm.
whichever party or authorities that controls those partnership should be empowered with enough information to
Yeah.
counsel and to guide them. So we should draw them closer instead of criticizing and sending them far away from us.
Yes.
So I think we should talk about it in schools, in the
Mm.
primary schools, in
Yeah.
colleges, in high and low
No.
schools, and
Yes.
all of that, so that stigmatization would just be reduced
Mm.
to the barest minimal.
Minimum.
You understand? So we should stop stigmatization.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why they don't like to be called sicklers. Yes, the
Yes.
word sickler itself,
Mm.
it's a stigmatizing
Word.
word, so
Yes.
it should also be dropped. But they're called warriors,
Yes. They're called warriors.
warriors.
Yes.
I wish there's a better word than warriors, because warriors just tells me it's about gladiators. They're called warriors, yeah, but we should support them in any way. you know Support them to make right choices, support them to access healthcare, support them to make right decisions,
Mm.
and support them to have a good life.
And speaking of which, for even health practitioners working, when you have a sickle cell patient that is pregnant, I think your eyes should always be on them, because I remember you talking about that sometime back, that you don't go to sleep as
Oh yeah,
gynecologist.
no, you don't know. You
Mm,
you would just be missing out something
mm,
because yes, and when they actually they choose to be pregnant,
mm,
we need to protect them. You
mm.
know, if it's comfortable for them, I always prefer that sickle cell, those who are not stable in health, should
Yes,
seek for some other ways of getting pregnant as
pregnant.
against carrying pregnancies
Hmm.
themselves. If surrogacy is permitted in the society where they
Where they
live
live.
and they are comfortable enough financially, I think it's good to push that body in a way that direction
Yeah,
than carrying pregnancy
the
themselves because
stress and
the
all.
stress and the burden of pregnancy can
Mm,
actually be very difficult
for
for
them.
the sickle cell warriors,
Yes.
So it's just a complicated web.
Yeah.
Just a
So
complicated web.
so from last week to this week, it's really been it's, I would say, an emotional time too, because it's somewhat something that has really touched us as at Alps Hospital, and we're reaching out to you all that might be going through this. I remember last week Alps Hospitals also preferred to assist the couple that cancelled their wedding. So it's really, in any way, if they are still willing to go through their love journey, they are willing to see to it and help offer them a way of getting healthy babies through PGD at their own cost. Wow, that's just a lot. So it's really been an emotional and touching time for us at Alps Hospital, trying to reach out to as many people just to have this information and get the help that you can, so you're well informed of the right choices and make the right decision. Yes, so yes, you make the decision is in your hands, but you're well informed of what you're about going into, and then you decide if you want to go into it or you opt out for something better for you. So keep your questions rolling as we wrap up the show. Dr. Ken will just give us in, should I say 10 words? Let me not say one sentence today now. Yes, what's just your counsel to the general public
Yeah,
with
just as you
regards to
mentioned, we
this?
got into this talk
Mm,
because of the event that was trending on the social
yes,
media.
yes,
A couple who had apparently visited Alps, not living
yes.
in Jos Plateau State,
Mm,
and eventually cancelled
their
the
wedding.
marriage, call of
Mm,
the marriage. They've already
yes.
distributed wedding invitations and all of that,
Yeah,
call of the
yeah.
wedding, and
Mm,
posted it
on
on
social
Facebook and
media.
other social media
Mm,
platform,
yes.
saying that they are not compatible and they are not
Mm,
they're careful about the health of the babies that may
babies.
come out of that relationship.
Yeah.
So we actually felt that the society should be educated a little,
Mm,
and we also extended our hands of care to them, and we thought we could do some more talks and educate the world about sickle cell as it affects the epicenter, Nigeria, and some other
yes.
countries
Mm,
that are burdened with sickle cell.
mm.
On a normal day, I would have loved to talk about what I do. I'm a crazy gynecologist, you know,
Crazy
it-
one.
who likes to explore,
Mm,
yeah, like to take on challenges.
mm.
You know, we brought in the laser gynecological surgeries to Africa, to Nigeria, and
Wow.
then we're doing a lot with it. I would have loved to talk about those stuff and how interesting it improves the healthcare, and what options that add to the woman, in
Yes.
choosing what kind of healthcare she wants and all the benefits of laser. I would have loved to also talk about CRISPR, which
Dear
is
to your heart.
which is dear to my heart. Yeah, and I'd love to talk about microwaves
Mm,
in gynecological care,
mm.
microwave treatment of fibroids.
Oh,
You
wow.
know, for those who don't want to go through surgeries,
Mm.
open surgery or minimal access surgeries.
Yeah.
Yeah, those will have been the things I like to talk about. But yeah, it's been worthwhile talking about sickle cell. My counsel is do the testing, do it over and over again before going
Yeah.
into a relationship that will lead to having babies.
Mm.
And then for those who are opinion leaders, for instance, who are leaders of frontiers, by this I mean the pastors, the imams, the head of religious groups, they
Yeah.
should understand this basic science
Yes.
and try to demystify it. It doesn't come from any god. It
Mm.
doesn't come from any deity. It
Mm.
is not karma. It is sheer ignorance.
Mm.
So they can guide their followers aright.
Yes.
And I feel also that marriages or relationships shouldn't be cancelled because of genotype, but you should point them to the right knowledge.
Mm.
Because when we are knowledgeable, when we are informed, we are
Yes.
empowered to make the right decisions.
Sure,
And if you
that's
must
right.
marry having a mismatching genotype, please note that you have a responsibility to have a healthy babies, and
Yes.
they will demand that responsibility of you, and we call that costly marriage.
Yeah.
You can you make sure you are financially comfortable before doing such kind of marital relationships. I think that's the counsel I would like to leave with the public, while I continue to wishing you health,
Yeah.
wealth,
Yeah.
peace,
Mm.
and happiness.
They will say Ise according to
And if you get me in
Nigerians.
this other side of life, then we can
Mm.
have fun together.
Mm.
Hmm.
So thank you so much, Dr. Ken. It's been very, very amazing, and it's been, I would also say it's been very emotional to having to deal with this talk from last
Hmm.
week to this week, and really do appreciate you and Ups Hospital for even the helping hand you're willing to render to this couple that had to go through this trauma. So for our dear viewers, thank you so much for staying glued to your screen, for following our post, for liking. Continue to share this with someone. You never know who you might be helping to reach out. And like he said, it's your responsibility to have a healthy baby. So make the right choices as you've gotten the right information from this platform. Have a good evening. Bye.